Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4. I just love Jamie counting these numbers up. And the more they ascend, the more I know that we're just doing something wonderful of Positively Board Gaming, the podcast that's all about the board gaming hobby and industry and the people who are in it and love it. I am Mitchell Whitfield, joined by my co-host, the wonderful and talented man behind Stonemaier Games, Jamey Stegmaier. How are you, Jamie?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not doing great because this was the week, we're recording this the week that the tariffs were announced, but I
Yes.
am really excited to be here with you in this moment right now because the point is that there are many things to be positive about, even at a difficult time. So I'm excited to be positive with you for the next 20 or so minutes.
I love that you said that because right before we started the podcast, Jamie and I were just sort of talking a little bit, and we do this because we have a love of something that we want to share. And hopefully the people that love board gaming and everything around it are also getting something out of this. But as I said to Jamie, we get something out of this too. We love what we do. And there's just something really fun and sort of cathartic was the word I used before we went on the air about sharing that, the positive energy and the love that we have for something, in this case, board gaming. It really is good for us too. So as much as we do it for you, it's good for Jamie and myself as well. So before we start, we always start with our sweet treat of the day. Jamie, you're up.
My sweet treat of the day is going to be
Oh,
a cup of hot cocoa. It's a cold, rainy day here in St. Louis, and I'm going to do what I have learned that I do now. I make it even less healthy than it should be. I make hot cocoa by melting a chocolate bar into hot cocoa mix and
you
oat
bad
milk.
man.
And it's really, really delicious. So I'll be doing that. What about you? What's your treat of the day?
Oh, my treat of the day. You know what, Jamie? I've been going old school lately. I feel like I've been saying old school a lot. I've been going with the Linzer tart, which is an old, it comes from actually the Linzer tort, which is like an Austrian dessert. I did my homework on this, by the way. You could tell I did a little bit of research on this, but always a dangerous thing. And it's a cookie for people that don't know it. Think of like two giant, like almond kind of cookies. The top layer, it's a sandwich cookie. The top one has a hole in the middle, so you can see like the raspberry jam that sort of forms the middle part of this sandwich, and the raspberry jam sort of peeks out of the hole in the top, and it's covered in powdered sugar. I've been on a bender with these. I feel like there might be an intervention needed. I'm on my second one this week. I know it's not good for me. I mean, in terms of like the sugar content, because I like other things too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went Linzer tart because that's who I am, Jamie.
Well, anyone who got Linzer tart on their bingo card today, congratulations.
You know what? I was watching the video that you did, and I was like, man, I was watching. If you're listening to this on the podcast and you're not watching it on the Stonemaier Games YouTube channel, Jamie posted a wonderful video, as he always does every Wednesday. He has a video that he does that's basically live cast on 2 platforms, right? It's done right. So and he was, in addition to sharing, news about Stonemaier Games and encouraging the audience to ask questions and to, share different topics, he did a bingo game with all the Stonemaier games that have come out and that are about to come out. And, he'd pull out the cards that were from Rolling Realms, and for each one, you'd fill in your bingo card. And I like the fact that everyone sort of had their own generated order on their particular screen, so everyone wouldn't be reaching bingo at the same time. But I was watching that. I was like, I want to play bingo with Jamie too. So if you listen to the show, watched it on, Stonemaier Games YouTube channel, or listen to us on your podcast platform of choice, that we have our standard form where each of us will bring something to the table and talk about it, and the other person doesn't know what that is. Before we start, Jamie, I have to ask this because there's always been I feel like there's been a close relationship between board gaming and video gaming. And both on the people who enjoy them a lot of people seem to enjoy them both, but also even on the design side, there's that similarity of, if you're creating something, the if-then scenario, the branching tree scenario of design, which applies to both board games and video games. So with that commonality, that's my excuse for bringing this up. Are you excited that Nintendo has announced finally that the Switch 2, are you excited about this upcoming console, and will you be partaking in this?
I don't know if I've ever owned a video game console. We have a PS3 in the house because Megan owns one.
Okay.
I believe it's a PS3.
Yep.
But I don't think I have ever owned one. So I am definitely excited about it. I've watched a bunch of videos about it already. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it because it looks beautiful. It looks like an incredible device. I can tell you're itching with excitement, though. How excited are you, Mitchell?
No, I always think like it's always exciting when a new console comes out, but Nintendo has always been a little different because and I talked about this with Mark on the radio show, unlike Microsoft and Sony, who seem to have this, one-upsmanship. I think Sony more than Microsoft, but there's always this one-upsmanship, and people are always on one side or the other. When it comes to video games, Nintendo has always been like the Switzerland. Everyone's sort of like, not that they stay out of the war, but people also, regardless of whether you're Microsoft or Sony, you'll always also get the Nintendo console because it's just so cool. So for me, it's just all about the fun. They weren't into the power and the numbers at this many gigaflops and terabits, nothing like that. It's just, we make games that are fun for the families you can enjoy with your friends, your loved ones. So I'm excited. Yeah, it's bigger. It's more beautiful. It's got more powerful. They're encouraging like online chat with both video and audio. So they're sort of getting with the times in that respect. So I'm super excited. Okay. I don't want to digress too much because, you get me going on this. And this topic is sort of partially for you, Jamey, that I'm about to bring up, what I'm bringing to the table today. And that is, and of course, it's going to appear in the title of this as well, the joy of unboxing. Now, you know that I'm a sucker for beautiful games. And I've always told you, I always appreciate how beautiful Stonemaier games are, both the artwork, the components, the boxes, the organization of them. And I am a sucker for unboxing a board game to the fact where I look at it as a form of therapy for myself. And I'm only like half joking. I don't want to use, misuse the word therapy and, make it seem like I'm making a joke about it, because I'm not. It is very therapeutic for me. I think, my OCD is definitely a part of this, a part of the unboxing process, because I love the order of it. I like taking the new wrapping off, whether it's paper wrapping on the cards that you guys do, which is very eco-friendly and wonderful, and also doesn't damage the cards sometimes like that shrink wrap does. I get such a joy out of it. And I think, I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one, because there's a reason, and if you're out there, if you're listening to this, whether on YouTube or on podcast platform, please let us know if you suffer from this as well. But I get such a thrill. And I think part of it came from over the last 5 years, Jamey, I've had a lot of surgeries, nothing life-threatening, but a lot of joint surgeries. That seems like I told you ad nauseum. Sometimes I feel like a professional patient more than an actor or, a creator. So during that time, when my board games would come in, it was such a source of joy for me that, and again, recovering from surgery, you're on pain medication, and you're just feeling like not like yourself. But having the board game to organize and open up and enjoy, it was very therapeutic during that time. And it's carried on past that as well, where the tactile, the feel of it, looking at the game after it's been unboxed and I've taken all the wrapping off and everything is sitting in the proper little bag or cubby that's designed to hold it, depending on what the insert is. Do you have a similar love of, well, it's going to be hard for you, but what is your take on this? Have you heard, am I the only one that really you've heard that really truly gets into this? Or have you heard that this is sort of a big deal for other people as well? Because I hope you've heard from other people, so I don't feel like such a freak, but maybe I don't mind feeling like a little bit of a freak, just not a giant freak.
I think you're spot on in terms of really just the general joy that I think people get from opening a new game and seeing what's inside. I've heard that from many, many different people, that especially a game that people maybe a game that you've looked forward to for a long time, and you finally get to open it up and see what's inside. I think it carries over to unboxing videos in general. There are a lot of videos of people just opening the game up, and I would say I've never quite fully understood that, but therapeutic is kind of the right word for it. Like there's no stakes to it. You're just kind of watching, enjoying someone else get excited about a game that they're opening and seeing what's inside of it.
You know what? I think the fact of it, because it's not just about the person unboxing, but also wanting to watch the video of it. That's another step, which I admit I do. And I think a lot of that is, and this is a topic for another podcast episode, Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general. I think that crowdfunding has become such a big part of the industry. People don't always get their games at the same time. There's no longer that release date for crowdfunding games, unless they're using the crowdfunding to just take orders and then they'll release it to everyone. But everyone is getting their games in these staggered sort of tiered delivery dates. So if I didn't get my game and I'm excited to get my game, I can sort of live vicariously through that person who maybe lives in another part of the world or the country that did get their delivery. So it's another way for me to maintain that excitement of, I'm trying to, as I'm saying it, I can see inside Jamey's head saying, this poor guy. Guy, let God bless him. Let him have his joy where he gets it. But oh man, we really need to get Mitchell alive. And I hear myself saying it. And I know it sounds a little weird, but I really, but there is that joy of getting something, or even a game that I love that I've already unboxed, that sometimes I'll go back and watch an unboxing video that someone
Oh
did
yeah.
so I can see the joy that, like, oh yeah, I like that part too. Did you see that meeple? It was really had nice screen printing on it. And on the back, they did the back too, not just the front. They didn't cheap out. So it got to the point where my friends knew that I got into this. And if I was not feeling great, I was like, oh, don't worry. I'm sure you'll have an unboxing later tonight. And sometimes it happened late at night when no one was awake. Because again, when you have surgery or if you have something that you're dealing with, it usually, especially if you're on any kind of medication, it throws your hours off. Your sleeping patterns are altered still to this day, my sleeping patterns are not normal. So if I'm up or if I wake up at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, I'm up for a few hours. What a great time to unbox. And I know there are certain people that don't like to unbox their game until they're tabling it. I know there are some folks that will only unbox at the and for me, it's like, number one, I like to have that experience for myself. I'll be selfish about it. But number two, I like it to be organized and ready for when I actually bring it to the table and we're learning or teaching. You know, I like all the bits to be in their separate little areas. And now you know why I always say to you, oh, Jamey, those components were they felt so good. They looked so good. It's like, geez, you want to get a room with my game? What are you doing here? What are you talking about? This like it's a romantic partner. Like, no, I just really appreciate when things are well done. And I think that does feed into why people like the components that have a certain tactile feel to them, or when attention is paid to those kind of details. So I know as both a designer and a publisher, it's like you hear this and you realize it isn't just about the look. And I mean, obviously the games, you make beautiful games, but it is a completely tactile experience. Tabling a board game is more than just the look of it. It's the tactile experience of touching, interacting, and that's got to be a big part of it too when you look at how you design and how you publish.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I want to throw at you a rapid fire of different types of components found in games.
Okay.
I want you to rate it from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, the ones that you're most excited about in terms of unboxing. So I'll just throw out a component and you say from 1 to 5 how excited you are to unbox that component and get it set up.
Sure.
Let's start out with punch boards.
2.
Okay. Miniatures.
4.5.
Cards.
4.
Meeples.
Depending on the meeple, anywhere between a 4 and a 4.5.
And let's end with the rule book. I know you don't really unbox it, but you do look at it.
Yeah, that's where you know what? That's like a 3.5 for me.
3.5. Okay.
But there is one that you're missing that was a 6.
What am I missing?
And I always talk to you about it. This is going to be like, Jamey, what color are my eyes? Do you listen to me? Do you look in my eyes when we talk? There's one component. And
the board or player mat?
The board or player mat would probably be like a 3 to 3.5.
Okay.
Let's put it this way. You have to roll them with your rounds.
Custom dice.
Jamey, there's something about custom dice that I almost feel like if a company, and this is shameful that I'm saying this, if a company put out a game that had custom dice, dual layer or something, triple layer boards, beautiful cards, and a couple of minis, I almost don't care what the game is. And I am I'm drawn to the custom dice, especially translucent, or like a different sort of color or texture. And I understand that people still make wooden dice. They serve a purpose. You know, I think a Wingspan especially, I couldn't imagine that with not having wooden dice. It was just appropriate for that game. But in general, all things being equal, if it's not necessary for the game, I always like the acrylic and the shiny translucent, let it have speckles inside, as long as I can still read them. You can't go too overboard so you can't read the dice. And I think sometimes people forget about that. But yeah, dice is my 6 out of 5.
I love that. And sometime we'll have to do maybe a section about custom dice that maybe we prepare for a little bit in advance, because there are a lot of games that have beautiful custom dice that would be fun to talk about.
I absolutely. Okay, so we've heard my ramblings, as we often do, but you have not heard the dulcet tones of one Jamey Stegmaier, who is about to jump in with his surprise topic. So go ahead, lay it on me. What do you have?
So you actually helped me segue to this topic, because you just described a game with a few beautiful cards, dual layered mats, beautiful dice, and some miniatures thrown in. And my topic today are fancy games, deluxe collector's editions, fancy games, really fancy games, fancy versions of games.
Okay.
And I'm excited to share this with you, because I think you have a love, and it's tied to the unboxing of these beautiful fancy games. It came to mind, though, specifically based on that segue, because last night I played, for I think the second time, the collector's fancy version of Castles of Burgundy. And I loved, this was a game that I was actually slow to love. The first time I played it years ago, I didn't really fully appreciate it. Then I came back to it. I'm glad I gave it a second chance because I really enjoyed it the next time I played it, time since then. And then last year and last night, I had the chance to play the beautiful collector's edition of it that has dual layered mats, that has their standard D6 dice, numbered 1 through 6, but they're custom. They're beautiful. They don't look like standard D6 dice. And the tiles that you're placing, at least in the version I was playing, are these beautiful acrylic tiles that click together.
Ah,
And there are miniatures for the castles if you want to use them. You don't have to use them, but we had them on the table. Everything about this production I thought was beautiful, and it really did enhance the gameplay. It was not only utilitarian, but also just felt good to touch and look at everything in that game. So I know you have a lot of thoughts about deluxe games too. So I'm going to throw this over to you. And specifically, have you played or seen the Castles of Burgundy, the collector's edition?
I just saw it in the other room because I have it. I have not tabled it yet, but you can bet that I unboxed the heck out of that. I needed a nap after that. That was so. And first of all, I think it's really cool. I think Awaken Realms is the company that actually put it out, which is very interesting because they're known for their incredibly deep and high level games of usually a lot of open world, very very heavy adventure style games,
Yeah.
very different themes. Some are set in dream world, some are set in alternate Arthurian history, some are done in space, but they always, and their production level is always off the charts, and their games are always really, whether they speak to you or not, I always appreciate the level of detail, the level of attention, the attention to story details that go into those games. Always very different and very cool. And I thought it was very interesting that a company that did their own stuff would also say, hey, we want to make a pretty version of this, or we want to make a deluxeified version of that. When I heard that, of course, my spidey senses were tingling like crazy. So I love that. I like having the option because, listen, for some people, Jamey, it doesn't matter. And again, at the end of the day, a great game is a great game, regardless of the deluxeification level, regardless of the production value. Although, as we know, it definitely helps. But if a game doesn't speak to you, having it be really pretty, it still might not speak to you. But I definitely think it enhances the experience. And I would always, and we've talked about this before, I think on one of your YouTube videos, where would you rather always have a deluxe version, or would you at least like the publisher / designer to offer deluxe upgrades as a separate added value if you want to? And then, because again, I know you look at this in two ways. You look at this as a gamer who tables games and loves production value, but you also look at it as a designer and publisher who has to think out, okay, there's an economic cost for every artistic decision I make. Has an economic cost. It has a cost. And we have to say, does the end justify the means? So I'm interested from your perspective, how you manage that. Is it a numbers game where you sort of decide, okay, what kind of response am I getting to the deluxeified components that we're offering for this? And does that mean we include that in maybe the next printing of it, and decide to, how does that go into your, how does, not necessarily the math, but how does the thinking go in for you when to add versus when to include?
It's a big part of it for me is accessibility has a lot of different meanings, but one of the meanings of accessibility is the price of the game.
Yeah, financial,
the financial accessibility. And so it's something that we actually thought about a lot with FinSpan, our recent release, where we could have put the deluxe tokens in FinSpan, and it would have increased the cost of the game by around $20.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people would have bought that version of FinSpan, but because it was that big of a cost increase or a price increase, we decided to, and because FinSpan is a little bit lighter than Wingspan, we wanted it to get to as many tables as possible,
right?
And make the prices as accessible as possible. So we actually priced it lower than Wingspan. Wingspan's a $65 game. FinSpan is a $50 game, and then people can add on those deluxe tokens if they want.
Right.
So it was very close with FinSpan. I think it could have gone either way. It was very, very close with that, but because of what we wanted FinSpan to be, we went with the lower price to get the foot in the door price so people could test it out, see if it was the right game for them, and then add on those deluxe components if they wanted to.
And honestly, I think these things are worth talking about because,
Mhm.
again, as gamers, we tend to get, when you're a fan of anything, we tend to get very myopic about that and very, it's like, well, it needs to be this and it needs to be that. I want it. I would really love it to be a lot of eyes in there, which is understandable. You love something, you want it to be a
Sure.
certain way, but sometimes that clouds the reality of, wait a minute, as much as we love it as a fan or a customer of, there is the other side of, okay, we have to make sure that this is something that we can recoup money back for, that we're not alienating certain customers because we're pricing it above that emotional price, which some people will not, that threshold. And again, there's a financial threshold, there's an emotional threshold. And those sometimes are two very different things. But I have to applaud you because at least you give that option.
Mhm.
And I think I wish that option was available more because I think more people would probably jump in. And
Mhm.
for those who would like it included in the game, so you don't have to pay for, if decide down the line you want to add it, separate shipping. Yes, that's true. But it's very hard again and again, I'm speaking as someone who is not a publisher. Okay, we have a deluxified version and not deluxified version. How many of each do we make? If we make too many of these and they don't sell, how do we recoup those costs? Well, maybe we should have just gone with selling it separately and let people decide for themselves. Yes, it might be a little more expensive to do it that way, but at least it's more financially viable for you, the publisher, and better for the consumer as well, because they're not forced to pay for something that they don't necessarily want right away. So at least giving that option is a huge thing. I would
I
love that
agree.
option with every game.
Yeah, I agree. I like presenting the option. I like presenting the option. Uh, and at the same time, I'm glad that there are some fancy versions of games too. I don't think I want every game on my shelf to be, in fact, I know I don't want every game on my shelf to be a $150
Yes.
super deluxe fancy version. But I appreciate when companies put that extra effort into certain games. This was a game that I played that wasn't mine. It was a friend's copy. And I was glad that the friend had bought this copy and I got to play it.
You didn't have to pay for it. Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to celebrate it in particular today. Both it's a coincidence that I played it last night, but also because of all the tariffs, these types of games I think they're going to become a little bit more rare because the price to the consumer is going to go way up. And so the ones that already exist that people have already paid for, that are already on our shelves, that's wonderful. I am excited to embrace those copies of the game that we already have and probably get some more of them to the table to kind of celebrate their existence in light of what might be ahead of us in the future.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, without, we're not a political show and I don't want to get political, obviously, but obviously the tariffs do have a huge effect. Most games are produced in China and then shipped here. That's the way the industry is. And yeah, the tariffs obviously are going to have an effect. And you talked about, I just want to add to one more thing about, you talked about, we're talking about deluxification, obviously. And we've also talked about this part before. Deluxification doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a $150 game that has, 50 miniatures or metal components, or as much as I love metal components, it doesn't have to be that. Sometimes deluxification can be a card like foil cards,
yeah,
beautiful cards, that you put into your games, um, it could be just a custom pair of dice. It could be
yeah.
something that simple. It can be a dual layer board. It can be one of the many things that add up to a super deluxe game. You could have one or two of those and think, oh my God, this is amazing. They put the time in to not, just give us the 6 pips and we're out. We have a custom die here. This is awesome. So I think just those touches and even inexpensive touches. I don't think dice are the most expensive thing to do, especially, once the mold is made, it's just pretty cheap to produce. Am I wrong here?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So just those small touches, I think it shows a little, it makes it pop on the table. It just makes it pop. I don't know
And
how to say it.
I'll piggyback off that because
Yeah.
my favorite component last night, the one that I handled the most, I would say, more than perhaps any other component, what were the reference cards.
Oh,
It's a really well done reference card just in terms of how it was composed in terms of graphic design, but the material they chose for it was substantial. We each had our own little reference card that you
right.
look at a lot in Castles and Burgundy, and I must have picked it up and put it down 24 times over the course of the game, Not only because I needed to look up things, but also because
Right.
I wanted to. Every time I was like, "Ooh, this feels nice. This is just a big reference card, but this feels really nice." So that's a little thing that was wonderful to touch and pick up throughout the game. Yeah, I know that's
Jamey?
silly, but
No. Look who you're talking to. You think I'm going to judge you and call that? I was about to say you're 2 surgeries away from being me. That's all I can tell you. God forbid. I don't wish that on anybody. But yeah, no, this is great. And we're going to have topics like this come up that sort of piggyback onto other things that spur other. And by the way, that question you asked about like most deluxe die. I mean, I already have answers in my head. I'm ready for you. I'm all ready for it right now. But you know what? The time really goes by fast when we talk together.
Yeah,
This
it's delightful to have this positive touch today and to be able to connect with you, Mitchell. And so I'm excited to talk to you next week as usual, but I'm also excited to hear what other people say about these topics, what people think about fancy games and about unboxing, what people would say is their 6 out of 5 when they unbox a game. I want to hear about that in the comments.
And by the way, how lucky are we that we had that synchronicity between our 2 topics today that one
Yeah.
fed it completely. And folks, like we always say, we don't talk about this beforehand. Jamey and I talk a lot about food and restaurants, but we don't talk about this beforehand. It just happened to be. So again, if you are watching this on the Stonemaier Games YouTube channel, please drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Again, what you think about Deluxified games, and are you a habitual unboxer? And I can own it. I'm owning it, Jamey. I'm not shying away from it. My wife would come in and go, "Yes, he is. Shame on him." But I'm opening myself to that. Or you can always go to positivelyboardgaming.com, leave us a message there. And to listen to us, you can always go to your favorite podcast platform of choice, or at positivelyboardgaming.com, or the Stonemaier Games YouTube channel. It's amazing how easily that just flows out of me. We're really catching our stride here. So Jamey, thank you again for doing this. I look forward to next week with a new surprise. Maybe they'll match up. Maybe they won't. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe they won't. But either way, we'll be back next week with episode number 5
yeah.
of Positively Board Gaming. We are a hit.
It's been great, Mitchell.
That was good. You know what? I really needed this today. This has been a very